Hello Flutter developer, welcome to my channel about Flutter. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to integrate a conversational experience into your Android and iOS Flutter app. We will be using Dialogflow API by Google to achieve such conversational interaction. This video is a companion video of my article that I wrote on my blog. In this particular article, we will be adding a conversational experience in an app that we build and design and build in my previous articles. Feel free to check my previous articles about how to design cross-platform Flutter prototypes for a landing page and how to make them responsive and how to implement themes in a cross-platform setting. I will be using the same app to add another dimension to this particular app, adding the conversational flow. So to get started with this conversational experience, I will be adding this a chat-like icon in my existing app right at the bottom corner. Clicking on this icon will bring up this particular UI, a chat-like UI, where user can enter any query text. As far as that user's query text has Flutter word in it, it will spit a new fact about a Flutter. So to achieve this integration, there are 4 parts to it. First one is setting up the dialog flow, and second is adding the integration, like the steps to integrate our dialog flow into our app, and third is adding the chat-like icon to get this experience started in your to integrate this experience in your app. There should be an entry point. So in my app, I have this chat icon as an entry point to start this conversational experience. And the last, adding the Flutter Facts Dialogflow Interface. This is the main component where user will be entering their queries and they will be shown the facts about the Flutter in this case. Okay, let's get started. So first step is setting up the Dialogflow. So you have to create an account on Dialogflow. It's free account to create, and this is how it looks at the first time, and it's free to sign up. So first time when you sign up for free and you have to go through the sign in once you sign up, and then the first thing will be shown to you is a create agent. There will be nothing right here, and you will see you have to have a create agent. So once you create your agent, you have to attach your agent with a Google Cloud project. So if you don't have a Google Cloud project yet, you may want to create one. And if you already have, you will choose it. So in my case, I have already my Google Cloud project set up, Flutter to Fly, that I will be choosing right here. And once you take these steps, you will be taken into a default welcome intent. The UI is like this. And so for this particular default welcome intent is shown to the queries at the beginning. You can change it as you want, or you can have your own intent if you don't like it. But for this article, I will keep the thing simple and will add my training phrases to this particular intent. So what's a training phrase? Training phrase is to train our agent on the queries, the likely queries that can come into it, and it is supposed to respond to them. So you may use different kind of queries that user might send to it, like what is Flutter SDK, what Flutter can do, what is Flutter, anything right here, or say hello Flutter. And so what agent does, it get trained on the similar sentences and the user expressions and try to give them response as we will do in the next step. So now the second step is the adding responses. So I will be using a very simple case in this particular article. Um, like if users say anything about Flutter, if they have anything Flutter in it, they will be shown one of these 8 um, responses. It will be picked randomly one and will be shown to them. However, you have option to fulfill these responses from a webhook or from Firebase. But in this article, it's not covered. It will be using the default simple text responses for the sake of simplicity. And once this agent is trained, you can actually type it right here and can see the response given by the Flutter. So in here, if a user says Flutter fact, the Flutter, it gives a little text, the fact about Flutter. Flutter is a great choice to develop cross-platform apps, for example. All right, so let me quickly show you in the UI right here. So since I already have created my project, so when I log in my Dialogflow, like here, so I'm already signed in here. If I'm not signed in here, say I'm signed out, and I say Dialogflow, I will be given this screen, and then if I say sign in, I'll be taken in my email and my password will be, I have to enter again, which is, see, great, it takes my password, and then I go to console. All right, and I'm back to my default intent. Now I click on my default intent and I add my user phrases, the user expressions that user may give, may enter to get the result. And here in the default cases, in the default responses, I have written 7 or 8. I removed one here. So this is what it does. So what it does is say I do Flutter here, Flutter fact. It gives me it picks a text response from these text responses and spit it out here. So this is what it does. But you can do much more to it. You can have dynamic fulfillment by clicking on the enable hook for call for this intent, enable hook for call for slot filling. And the way you can change it is you can go in here in the fulfillment. And here's your inline editor. And it's powered by the cloud functions. And you can enable the either this by if you want your fulfillment by Firebase cloud functions, but if you want them a webhook like from your own servers, you may want to select the top one. All right, so this is the basic one that I wanted to show you quickly, and let's go back to the article. And the next thing is, so this is great, we just made our agent, we just trained our agent in responding to a particular user input which contains a Flutter, a word in it, which is great. But now how would we integrate into our app? How our app will be able to call these APIs of Dialogflow? So for that, we need to have a Google Cloud project. So in our case, in my case, I have Flutter to Fly that I already have. So what I have, so I have to go in my cloud console.google.cloud Google Cloud Console. Okay, so it's console.cloud.google.com. That's where you should be going. And then you select your project from here. It's a drop down, so I have a different projects. I will choose my Flutter to Fly, and I have to have an API service, and I have to click on my credential. So once I click on my credential, I will be given an option to create my service account right here. And then I will be given an option to create an account key, which is dialog integrations I will be using, and I will use the JSON, which is a recommended way for the key. And then I will save my key to my computer. Now I would need this key to make the calls to the Dialogflow API. But you may not want to check in these credentials into the public repos or in repos in general. You may want to save it in a different repo, the credential repo, for safety purposes. So the way I secure it, I always create a symlink and my key stays in my computer. I do it so that I accidentally don't check in my credentials into my GitHub repo, which is public. So in this case, I put my key into the assets folder, and in the assets, I give a path to it. All right, and another thing I want to do it, I will add dependency pubspec.yaml in my Dialogflow. This is a plugin, this is a Dialogflow plugin that I will be adding in my dependencies in my Flutter native app. All right, so now the third step is adding the entry point for starting the conversational experience in your app, which is I will be adding this icon, this chat icon in my front landing page. So the way I do it, I had created a library, a simple file, which I'm calling widget_lib. And that's where I added my FactsBot. So what it is just a little icon. So I made it reusable so that I can reuse this icon in my larger screen or my smaller screens. So in here, it's a floating action button and which has a chat icon on it, and which if you click on it, it will start another UI, another interface for user to enter their query and to interact with the FlutterBot. So now here I want to take little diversion to show you about how I'm accomplishing the routing, like what does it mean, like navigator.push name, what does it mean and how it works. So let's go back to the Android Studio. So right here, and my app is right here. So in here, if you go into the main, so we have to do a few adjustments in our existing code. So in here you can see it's a facts Dialogflow, it's a string, and it's a navigator.push name. So what it does, it goes to the router. So one thing we have to add is a router.dart file. So what this file is, it reroutes the request within the system. So when it come across with a slash, it opens the my home page. It opens the home page for the app. And if it come across this facts dialog string, it will open my Flutter facts Dialogflow, which is like if I click here, the router opens this screen. So for that, I had to create my router.dart, and the way I call my router.dart from main dart is this is how I do it. So the change I do it, I add these two lines on generate route and initial route. So what is it? How does it happen? So now you see these all imports that were there before. So I was calling my body and constructing my whole home page right here in my main dart. So it's all gone. And I put my routing, like if you pass a particular string to open a particular page, that mapping goes into my router.dart. And in here, I say to my material app, when use the router to generate the route, and the initial route set it to slash. So what slash means is, so when it goes to the router, when it matches the slash, so you open your home page whenever you cross the slash, And if you don't find a path, then by default return the home page for this your app. Now when you come across facts dialog flow, facts underscore dialog flow string, you open the Flutter facts dialog flow interpage. So that's the navigation part. So now what happens? So let's go back to our article. So this is what we do here. And now the last part is how we construct this particular Flutter Facts dialog flow interface. So if you click on it, it says stateful widget. We want it to be stateful. Let's get more space right here. And it has three components to it. You will see there's an app bar at the top. Here's a big area screen to show interaction log, the conversational log between you and Flutter FactsBot. And this send a message is an input area for the query for the user. So whenever user adds a query, say Flutter, and either hit enter or click on this send button, a text will be a fact will be shown about the Flutter. So I said Flutter, so Flutter fact please, and this time I'm using my button. So it picked me different random facts from those 8 facts in my dialog flow and showed me right here. So you can see, so first it has 3 parts to this UI, and now you see every time I enter a text, it shows it in a message. So you can see the message also have a different component. You see the Flutter bot messages are aligned towards the start of the screen, and the my user messages or the queries are aligned towards the right side or the ends of the screen. And the another thing you might notice here is the messages. So new message comes at the bottom, and my old messages, the first enter message goes at the top. So how would we show? So we need one data structure to hold my messages. That's where my fact messages underscore messages are there. It's an array. And how these fact messages are, what does it has in the fact messages? So click on it and go inside. So this is a stateless widget. So the fact message is just like to represent one row of this particular conversation or its particular list view that I will have later here. And as you can see, it has a 3 component to it. One is I want to show my text like Alibaba uses Flutter. Second thing, I want to have a name like who did it, like a Flutter bot in this case. And the type is like if it's a bot or is a user message. So I need this information to align my message either at the start of the screen or at the end of the screen. And you see I have 2 type of message, bot message and the user message. In the bot message has my circle avatar here is aligned towards the start of the screen, and it has a little text on it, bot, and next to it is a column, an expanded column which is aligned towards the start, and it has a text, it has a name on it, and I put it bold. You can see the font weight is bold, and the container and a simple text received by the Dialogflow API. The same thing goes for the user. So for user, it's aligned at the end. You see at the end, and the text, and so that's pretty much to it. And you can see the container which has the circle avatar comes at the end. So that's the order is flipped if you notice. So here my circle avatar is at the beginning. In my user message, my circle avatar is at the end. So that's to it, and it says stateless widget. So let's go back to this whole screen. So what we do here, so as you see, these messages are being held in list view in a list of fact messages. So the another important component or the starting component is the query input widget, which is a text widget. Um, it's a text field in Flutter. So it needs two things which is important to it. One is the text controller. Text controller is needed for to understand the enter keystrokes that comes by default with it, and it has another default method on submitted. So whenever a on submit method is called, either by hitting like here or when you press enter, so this method will be called right here uh, on the on submit query. I will show you what a submit query does in a minute. And the second, so on the container, so what it does is it has a row, it's a big row right here, and the first part of the row is a text field, and the end part of it is a icon button which has a send icon. And what it does is when I press it, it takes the text from text controller, which is associated, assigned to my this input, and takes a text of it and send to my submit query right here. Submit query. You can see submit query, we don't pass anything in here, but we pass here explicitly. So the reason we pass here but not here, in the text field, the text is passed implicitly into my submit query. So that's why we don't pass it explicitly. But in here, we have to explicitly pass the text of that the user entered in the query box. So when we go in submit query, what it does is, first thing, it clears my input in my text query. Second thing, it constructs a fact message data structure. So it's made up of the text, user inputted text, who did it. So in this case, I did it. So I put my name on it because this is only the user will be interacting with it. So I'm okay to either put username, or in this case, I'm just hardwiring my name in it here. And type true is a type 1 user, which is me, which is a human. And second thing I do is I update my message queue. So that's the reason we have this widget as a stateful, not the stateless, because we want to update messages dynamically throughout the life cycle of this widget. So when we insert at the beginning, it have to reflect on this screen. That's why we use the stateful widget for to implement this UI, not the stateless. And once I update my message list, I send my text, the query text, to Dialogflow to interact with the Dialogflow API and to send me the response. So let's see what Dialogflow response does now. So this is where the real interaction from your app and the Dialogflow backend happens. So first thing, of course, it clears the text field that is done already before, so you don't have to do it again really, but it just makes sure it's being cleared. And second thing, it does the authentication like auth Google, and it uses my file, which is a private. Again, please do not check in your credential file into your GitHub repo or version control where it's not safe. And second thing, what it does, it's await, it's the asynchronous call, non-blocking call. And the Dialogflow, it takes a Dialogflow, it passes this auth Google instance here and the language that I want to get my response in. And AI response, what it does is it gets the, so what it does, the query, which is a text really, and is detect the intent, so it's been passed, and it's a asynchronous method too, it's a non-blocking call too, and the response is returned by the Dialogflow. In our case, it's a randomly picked one text response from the Dialogflow API, and it uses the same fact message to construct my a message from the Flutter bot. So you can see there's a Flutter bot is written here in the name, and the type is false. This is a false type of user. And the way we extract the text from responses, we get the message and we get the card dialog flow type of message. So this is the internals of the plugin of like a title. So we are just is a simple, very simple representation for the Dialogflow response. So it's been, if you go inside right here, that's how it is. So it's like a card. So these card Dialogflow, these are the type of responses you can assign in your Dialogflow. This is the simplest one. So in here, in the card and title, subtitle, image, relevant buttons, that's all you can do for now, right now. So this is done in the plugin code. This is not the code I wrote. This is from the plugin I used in this tutorial. All right, so now again the message is inserted at the beginning, and since we have used the reverse, as I think I mentioned before, in the reverse true to keep the latest messages at the bottom, so whatever new comes, it's shown here. So that's the flag that keeps control of the order of the messages. So if when first user enters a message, it's shown here like hello Flutter. So it's first shown here. Now it got the response from the bot and it's shown here. So Flutter is not a language but a SDK. By the way, what's the language Flutter uses? Which is Dart, of course. All right. Yeah, so that's pretty much it to it right now. And so we just created a Flutter Facts bot here just for fun facts. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and I will see you in my next tutorial. Till then, thank you very much.